Hello, I'm going to explain my competition experience, the lead up to the Worlds, and what happened at the Worlds. If you're considering competing in a Barista Championship, this could be quite helpful for you in the future as well, so you'll know what to expect. It was up and down for me, mostly up, but there were moments where things happened that were out of my control. But it's just making the most out of that situation, staying positive throughout the entire thing. So it all started last year. The competition from my first preparations till the Nationals was about 4 months. So I had 4 months of development in terms of concept. When I competed in Wellington, I won by 1.5 points. So it was like super close. After getting the feedback from the national competition, knew that I had to make significant changes for the world competition. I knew it wasn't good enough. The concept was definitely something I believed in, and I really wanted to push for that as well. Make it so it's convincing enough at the world stage, anyone from the judging panel can understand it. All the judges are from different parts of the world, so they all have different cultural backgrounds. A lot of the judges from producing countries don't have the issue of approachability, so I needed to be aware of that when I was developing my concept. When I won late February, the Worlds was in June, so I had about 4 months of development to improve my current concept and routine. The final coffee that I chose was actually my third option. So after Nationals, I came back to Melbourne and I came across a green coffee importer. Green coffee is what we call unroasted coffee. He had this Guatemalan coffee that was a geisha varietal. Just like any fruits, coffee has different varieties, pretty much like the truffle of mushrooms. What was special about this coffee, because of the heavy Mayan tradition or culture in Guatemala, they only process this coffee under the full moon. I don't know what's the science behind that, on how it makes the coffee taste better. Because my theme was all about approachability, I found that the power of storytelling was the most important part of engaging a consumer. This coffee was perfect for that concept. This was about 3 months from the world competition. When I placed an order for the coffee, the farmers decided to sell the coffee on auction instead. Because of that, I had no guarantee that I was able to get this coffee. I decided to go plan B. Plan B is sourcing the coffee from a different producer. This producer worked a lot with development of experimental coffee at the farms. This coffee was really special because I've never heard of this processing technique before. It was taking a Ethiopian coffee and sorting them by size. Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee, so all the varieties there are heirloom, so they're all mixed varietals. Garden coffees, meaning that they only come from small patches of land, you can't be specific with the coffee. Having the mill process and sort these coffees into sizes, we're able to get closer to a consistent flavor profile. There were large cherries and small cherries. He's realized that the smaller cherries produced more acidic coffee due to the less fruit substance, which we call mucilage. And by processing it naturally, allowing the cherries to dry in the sun, all the little amount of fruit flesh in the cherries actually balance out the high acidity of the smaller cherries. So this promoted a really balanced coffee flavor. The first time I tried this coffee was when my boss came back from the Shanghai World Coffee Expo. He brought back 10 grams of this coffee. He knew that I needed a coffee for competition really badly, so he brought back 7 different samples. 6 of them were geisha varieties and that one experimental Ethiopian coffee. When he arrived back in Melbourne, he set up a cupping for me to taste all these coffees. Cupping is our standard industry practice of quality assessment of coffee. We cup them blind, so I didn't know what coffees were what. And they all left the room and let me cup the coffees by myself. The experimental Ethiopian stood out more than anything else. It had such a complex, yet simple flavor profile. I knew I wanted to use it straight away. Went back to my boss with the result. I was like, what was that geisha that I just cupped? And they were like, oh, that was a naturally processed Ethiopian. And from then on I was like, yes, I need this coffee. So based on that 10 grams of coffee, I had selected and created a concept around it. So I created a signature beverage. They were still bagging it in Ethiopia. Estimated about 3 weeks before you actually get it. 3 weeks later, the coffee still hasn't arrived. And when we checked the tracking code, it only stopped at Dubai, but we actually lost tracking of it afterwards, so it didn't even arrive. This was 3.5 weeks before my world competition. So, plan C. A geisha coffee that we already had in the roastery from the beginning. My boss used this in a filter coffee competition and resulted in second place in Australia. So I was really familiar with this coffee. But knowing that we had that coffee all along means that I could have spent more time using that coffee and being even more familiar with it. But in saying that, because of the two choices that didn't go through, my concept became stronger from that Guatemalan to use the power of storytelling. Because of the experimental coffee, it helped develop my signature beverage. So in saying that, problems that I encountered actually became beneficial to me creating my final routine. So the format of the competition is to create 12 drinks for 4 different judges. 3 drinks each, 1 compulsory milk, 1 compulsory espresso, 1 compulsory signature beverage. You can do whatever you want, any music, any dialogue, as long as it's presented within 15 minutes. You are judged on your technical skill, the flavor of that beverage. They need to match your description. So if I said the coffee tasted like green apples, it needed to taste like green apples. So June came, it was practice. Practice, 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 practice. Every day after work for about a month. It was exhausting, it was mentally and emotionally draining. The world competition was in Ireland, Dublin this year. Flying everything, about 60 kilos of competition gear to the other side of the world, second most challenging thing out of the whole competition. First thing we did was unpack and make sure that everything was okay. Thanks to a couple of friends who are latte art legends in Ireland and very good friends of mine, they helped us a lot in terms of getting prep and last minute things. I knew them through latte art competitions as well. I was the 2013 and 2015 latte art champion for New Zealand. With those connections from previous competitions, I'm able to create a network of coffee friends and family. So on competition day, I did my performance. There was a technical issue during judging I was not happy with, so I asked the World Coffee Committee if I could compete again. So I did. So on the first day of competitions, I got to compete twice. On the second performance, I actually forgot to say, please drink my milk drinks before I called time. Because of that, my milk drinks all scored 0 on taste. It is in the rules and it is a mistake on my part. Even though that happened, I ranked 23rd out of 60 countries. I am extremely proud of my overall ranking, considering the entire experience that I've had with competition. Getting up to this point was about 8 months of prep. For my world routine, I used the power of storytelling, help translate the complexities and why my coffee tasted a certain way based on how the coffee grew up to who it was today. It was a story about Maggie. My signature beverage was heavily influenced by the fine dining world. They're able to create a space where they engage you as a consumer. They serve you a really complex meal. It's made with precision. It's presented beautifully. Made at a high quality. But they use a really simple language to help convey these complexities, to make it approachable. And I knew I wanted to link those two industries together. At the world stage, I met so many other passionate people. It was just my story and my journey to the world stage, and you could imagine what the other 60 would say about their journey. The biggest thing that I've learnt from the worlds is that I'm able to take a very small part of hospitality, which is coffee, understand it from a scientific chemistry level. Because of that, I can appreciate everything else in hospitality to that same degree as well. I think there is so much more to learn outside of coffee, but coffee being the driving force into me understanding that. The network, the people that I've met are all incredible. The dedication and hard work that they've all put in to create this 15-minute presentation. Sometimes people think that I've spent months and months creating this 15-minute performance, and at the end of it, if you don't do well, it was all for nothing. And I didn't see it that way. I saw it in a way that if I had not done it, I wouldn't have appreciated the world of hospitality as much as I have now. Now I'm back in Melbourne and just trying to discover as much as I can about the world of food and beverage and what it has to offer. If you're considering competing, do it for the right reason. You'll come out as a better person. Don't aim for a result. The success was the journey. to the Worlds.